up, what up? Welcome on in to Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. On today's show, we recap Selection Sunday for Baylor Basketball. We'll talk through the men being a 3 seed starting out in Memphis, Tennessee, while the women are a 5 seed. And the road to the Final Four for them begins in Blacksburg, Virginia. Plus, Baylor Baseball picks up a huge series win over top 25 Texas Tech. All that and more coming up on the show. Don't forget, you can catch Inside Baylor Sports every weekday. You can also watch the video version for free over at BaylorPlus.com and on our Baylor Athletics YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, rate, and review the pod. And follow Baylor Plus today on X, Instagram, and Facebook. It's the official content network of Baylor Athletics. Think Netflix for your Baylor Bears. Download the app on your mobile device and sign up for your free 7-day trial today at BaylorPlus.com. It's Monday, March 18th, 2024. Justin Hoff alongside the Baylor Bear insider Jerry Hill. Let's begin with the men, Jerry. The number 3 seed in the West region. First round matchup is set for Friday at 11:40 Central Time on True TV in Memphis against the Colgate Raiders. Jerry, your reaction to the men's region?
No, I like it. For one thing, Memphis, it's a close enough place where, it's easy to get for fans to get to, certainly close enough where, some fans could even drive to. So I like that part. I like that they, 3 seed. That's what we talked about from the very beginning. Thought they could have played their way up to a 2 seed if they could have made a deeper run in the Big 12 tournament. But I think a 3 seed is kind of what they deserve. And, facing a Colgate team out of the Patriot League, we know there'll be a tough matchup or a tough game. Everybody in the NCAA tournament, it's not just a cliche. Everybody in there is good. And most of the ones you'll play at this point are conference champions. So that's what that's what Colgate is. So, that's what we'll get in the first round.
Colgate all-time 0-6 in the NCAA tournament, are hoping to make it 0-7. They've been in the tournament for consecutive years. I believe Pat Nunley said 5 straight years for Colgate. They lost to Texas last year. They were the 15 seed. Texas was the 2 seed. And oh, by the way, how much last year and this year is similar for the men. The true seed line came out on Sunday night, and the men are number 9. The exact same number they were last year, right? Last year, the number 3 seed took care of 14-seeded UC Santa Barbara, then faced off against the 6-seeded Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton defeated Baylor. This year, we're looking to get past that first weekend, obviously. And so Baylor, I know the last 2 years getting knocked out in the second round. I know that's on their minds some, at least the coaching staff. For much of this team, they weren't a part of those squads, unless you're Jonathan Chamwa Chachua. But this squad looking to get past that first weekend, have a great opportunity. Last year, number 2 in offensive efficiency, 107 in defensive efficiency. This year, number 6 in offensive efficiency and number 64 in defensive efficiency. We've seen games, Jerry, where the defense has been better than last year. Can Baylor move on and advance further than what they did last year?
Yeah, I think they definitely should. And Justin, I can look at these 2 teams, last year's team and this year's team, and this is a better team. I think it's safe to say that with what they brought in, through the transfer portal with Ray J and with Jaden Nunn, but then the freshmen that came in with Eve and Jacoby Walter and even and even Myro Little. That's 3 really good additions, and then the transfer portal. They've had some really good additions. This is a team that's good enough, capable enough, certainly to make it to the second weekend and maybe even farther.
The Bears are the only team in the nation with 6 active players averaging double-digit points. One of those is Langston Love, hoping to get him back. Looking forward to hopefully getting him back, and we'll see how it shakes out this week. But thanks to this season's performance, Baylor is 127-34 over the last 5 seasons, the nation's best winning percentage among Power 6 teams during that span, 78.8%. Nobody's better. And Baylor entering another top 3 seed for them, the 4th straight year with a top 3 seed. The only school in America to do that as well. So just Baylor basketball on the men's side, it's never been better, Jerry. This stretch just continues. And I know a lot of eyes are going to be on the team in March. You can say the regular season. Some will say it doesn't matter. It's all about the postseason. It's all about March Madness. And we do know, though, all eyes will be on March.
And you mentioned the 4th straight, top seed. And honestly, if you go back to 2020, they would have gotten it then too. They probably would have been a number 1 seed that year. So this would technically, if they had had a tournament that year, it would have been the 5th straight year. So they've had just a great run. I mean, Baylor is to that point now, the men in particular, where, this is what the expectation is. It's not just to get to the NCAA tournament. To take the words from Scott Drew's opening message, it's not just to get to the NCAA tournament, it's to win championships, and whether that's Big 12 or NCAA championship. So that's the goal, and that will never change. And when you've had this kind of consistency over that length of time, everybody knows Baylor now. I don't think, even back when they made the 2 Elite 8 runs in 10 and 12, Baylor really wasn't a name that a lot of people recognized in the basketball circles, and certainly wasn't a basketball blue blood. But, now they're to that point. They've won enough now where they can be considered among the best in the nation.
Baylor's 8-5 all time when playing as a number 3 seed. You think about Baylor, 6th time in program history to receive a 3 seed, 12th straight postseason appearance, 12th appearance in an NCAA tournament for Coach Drew at Baylor. Baylor has made the NCAA tournament 16 times in its history of 118 seasons. Coach Drew has 12 of those. We know about the project and everything he's done to rebuild this thing, but this thing's on the tracks right now and going super smooth, and just his program and his staff. I mean, just year after year, new players, the kind of consistency. This is not easy. And so once again, the numbers we just hit at you for all the listeners out there, Baylor has been the best, most consistent program at the Power 6 level the last 5 years. And so looking forward to what March has to offer. But Jerry, it's no small feat what they've done these last 5 years, and it's something that's definitely celebrated and was celebrated on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think that's the expectation. It's no longer a surprise. It's no longer good enough just to get there. This is the expectation. The expectation is to get in the tournament and make a run, and that's something they've built themselves. I mean, you think back to the history of this program, and you can look back on the Final Four, ancient years ago when even I wasn't alive. So, that was so long ago that it doesn't even really matter. But this stretch that Scott Drew has had, starting when he came in 03, and just what he's built here, it goes without saying. I think it's maybe the best rebuild, the best build in NCAA sports history, but I think certainly in NCAA basketball history.
Wait, you weren't alive in 1948 and 1950? I thought you were there covering those games.
I was just past that. I think I was a baby boomer, so came sometime after World War II.
Okay, and yeah, you think about where this program is, though. You think about Foster Pavilion. We have one of the best arenas in America, the home court advantage, how loud it got there. I mean, even getting writers like Bryce Cherry to talk about how loud it is. I even gave him a joke on last night's selection special about that. He definitely deserved it. He's the one that put the headline up there. But, yeah, I mean, this program is just rolling right now. And so you think about where they are. Love the region, too. The West region, the pathway is Memphis, L.A., Phoenix. And so getting some miles on the West, we know next year in the Big 12 Conference, we're going to be going West more. You think about what we did this year with BYU, but Colorado, Arizona State, Utah. Oh, by the way, the Big 12 continues to get better and match the SEC in terms of how many teams. 8, a record 8 teams for the Big 12. You get Colorado in next year. They made the tournament. Oklahoma didn't. So Baylor, or the Big 12 gets better with Colorado coming in and Oklahoma hitting the exits. And the same can be said about Arizona, who was a 2 seed. And Texas was definitely not a 2 seed. So you think about Arizona, Texas was a 7. Arizona's a basketball program, right. Texas not as much. And so once again, the Big 12 gets better next year. And I'm just thinking about what this Big 12 can be if there's an expanded NCAA tournament, if it does go to 76, which Brett Yormark wants. Scott Drew has been on the record of talking about he wants an expanded NCAA tournament. I think the fact there's so many bid thieves and stealers and all that this year, there's more reason to do that. It's not too out of the question in the future that the Big 12 on the men's basketball side, Jerry, may have 11 or 12 teams one day in the NCAA tournament.
It's crazy to think. And I wonder, so you said 76. How would that work in terms of how many, does that just add play-in games, or how would that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot out there, but Brett Yormark put the number out 76, and there's been some rumors about the whole 96 and things like that. But I think, it's slow and steady. You think about the college football playoff, there's been chatter about 12 to 14, and they just got to 12 and things like that. But the 76 number has been rolling out, and yeah, it's just 8 more playing games. Basically, you're taking the first 4 and you're playing all day. So I think, hey, if the Big 12 gets more teams and we know we're in the best conference year in, year out, why not?
Yeah, and I think, they deserved it. I thought they deserved 9 this year. And I know, Oklahoma, I guess, was the one left out, and they certainly had a case. I think they were one of the first 4, if not the first one out. So certainly deserved maybe 9 this year. And, like you said, with the additions of Arizona and Colorado, it doesn't get any easier next year when you lose Texas and Oklahoma. There are some sports where that might be the case. It's not in basketball. When you think about who you added this past year, with Houston, a number 1 seed this year, with BYU, they're in the tournament. So, again, I think we've added really good teams, and certainly with the ones coming in next year, including Utah and Arizona State. I mean, this is going to be, I think it already is by far the best conference. I think it even gets better next year. And so it will be like undoubtedly the best conference in NCAA.
Yeah, and so for Baylor, looking at the West region, North Carolina, the 1 seed there. The 2 seed is Arizona, future Big 12 foe. 3 at Baylor, Alabama, the 4. Your overall thoughts on the region and looking at it from top to bottom? This looks like a region. Pat Nunley said there's nobody in this region that he doesn't think Baylor playing its best basketball can't beat.
And that's kind of what you look at, Justin. And I think you look at you talked about it earlier or before with me that, this is an offensive kind of dominated bracket. And I think that favors Baylor. Certainly we've struggled at times against some defensive minded teams, but yeah, you're right. This is not one that you look at and go, well, we can't beat this team. And I think that's kind of what you look at is who can we not beat in this bracket? And I don't think you can look at this bracket. I mean, Arizona is obviously very good. North Carolina is very good. We knew that 2 years ago when they made it to the Final Four and got through us, when we were a 1 seed that year. So, yes, North Carolina is very good. But this overall, and even in, the little pod that we're in with Clemson and New Mexico playing in the other game, there's neither one of those teams is like, I don't know that it scares me. But so, yeah, I think it's a very favorable bracket. Certainly there are great teams in there. Scott's brother got in this bracket as well with Grand Canyon as the 12 seed. So, I think it's a very favorable bracket, Justin, and certainly one that they're capable of getting through. I'm not, predicting right now Phoenix or bust, but I think it's a team that can get there.
Yeah, and you think about a lot of these teams, we've seen these teams over the years. North Carolina a couple of years ago in the tournament. Michigan State have played them a handful of times, whether it was the Bahamas or in Detroit this past year. St. Mary's, we played them in the NCAA tournament before. Alabama, we've seen them in the Big 12 SEC Challenge a couple times. Arizona, we played out there in Tucson. They came to us as well that same day we won the Big 12 championship a couple of years ago. So there's teams that we played in this area, in this region. And yeah, I was looking forward to it. And crypto.com arena, that sounds pretty good for, Sweet 16, Elite 8. Got a lot of work to do in Memphis first, but there's an opportunity there. And then you stay out west for Phoenix. And for Baylor men's basketball, I really think, hey, getting to that second weekend would be just a huge piece. And as the number 9 true seed line, really on paper, that's your expectation. Get to the Sweet 16. Everything past that, because you're number 9, you're a 3 seed, would be gravy, essentially.
So essentially, does that mean Arizona is the 2 or the 8? I don't even know. I'm not sure how exactly. Yeah,
it doesn't go just like that. They're
just
trying to
like that.
Yeah, they try to make these. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but they try to make the brackets in the regions fair, right? So it's definitely not a 2 is a 8. The 8 seed, the true line was Iowa State. Iowa State was number 8. So
you couldn't play them. So
yeah. So well, you could. I mean, you could put them down there, but normally
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. and there's even one bracket here that has 3 Big 12 teams in it in one of the regions. But nonetheless, Baylor has an opportunity, right? On paper, they're supposed to make the Sweet 16. And so we'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, March Madness is wild, and a lot of things don't necessarily happen on paper. Over on the women's side, the number 5 seed, Baylor women's basketball, they will play the winner of Vanderbilt Columbia in Blacksburg, Virginia. They're part of Region Portland number 3. And Jerry, so you have to wait a little bit to figure out who your opponent is here on the women's side.
Yeah, and that's different. Nikki talked about that she said that's the toughest part of their bracket is you don't know who you're playing in the first round. I compared it a little bit to kind of you go to the Big 12 and you don't know who you're going to play, but you've already played those teams. You know those teams. You've scouted those teams. They don't know Vanderbilt or Columbia very well. So they'll take a deep dive into them, and you really do Justin, you really do have to prepare for both. You don't know. They're going to play Wednesday, and until somebody comes out of that, you don't know who you're going to play. So you got to almost kind of prepare for both. I think what she had talked about was maybe looking at the commonalities in those two teams and preparing for that. But you got to prepare for so much right now that you don't know exactly what is going to happen. So yeah, that's tough. That's the tough part of that bracket. I think overall they wound up again. I think with the women too. I think they wound up with a very good bracket. So I think both teams did, but that's probably the toughest part of the Baylor women's bracket or early bracket is that they've got to play one of the play-in teams.
Yeah, in the pod with them is Virginia Tech, the host school in Marshall. Virginia Tech, they're 24-7 on the year, as is Baylor, same record. And Virginia Tech, not to get too far out in front, but just for the listeners, who they could play if you're winning the game, which you on paper, once again, should handle Vanderbilt and Columbia, but games are not played on paper. They're played on the court, 40 minutes, so anything can happen. But if you're able to advance past that one, you will take on Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech, they have a superstar low post player in Elizabeth Kitley, a senior. She's 6'6". She's had a great season, 22.8 points per game, 11.4 rebounds. That's been Baylor's kryptonite a little bit, big post players. The issue for Virginia Tech, though, Kitley's injured, and she did not play during the ACC tournament, and her status is up in the air. She's a WNBA candidate, and so there's a lot going on there, Jerry, but that's their top player, Georgia Amore. The second player, a guard, 5'6", averages 19 points per game, 7 assists per game. So she's really good. This is a complete team, a team that did damage last year, but they've been hit by the injury bug at the time you don't want it. And so that could impact their tournament some.
Yeah, I think Kitley's injury changes everything. If you had a healthy Virginia Tech team, number one, they might not have been on the 4 line. They might have been a little bit higher. So, yeah, I think losing Kitley, if she's out, could be a huge thing. I think that's the difference in that second game is if she can play, if she can't play, that's going to be the difference in that game. I think without her, they're going to have a really hard, if Baylor gets through its first game. I think Virginia Tech has a really hard time getting through Baylor without Kitley.
Virginia Tech, losers of 3 of their last 4 games. Baylor, winners of 6 of their last 7. So Baylor trending up, Vatek trending down a little bit without their star center out there for Virginia Tech. So looking forward to that, no doubt. When you look at the season for Baylor women's basketball, 24-7 overall, 12-6 in conference play, the 20th straight NCAA tournament appearance, the 5th longest streak in the country. Nikki Collin, her 3rd straight NCAA tournament, leading the Bears 72-27, 73% winning percentage, doing a great job. Second time in program history for the Baylor women to receive a 5 seed. Baylor's one of 10 Division I programs in the country with 6 or more AP top 25 wins this season. The 6 top 25 wins, the most in a single season under Nikki Collin. This team's tested. You played Utah. You beat Texas at Texas back in December. Texas, by the way, number 1 seed on the women's side. Mm-hmm. So this team has seen great teams. They've seen teams like Vatek. They've been through the wars. They played a lot of tournament-type games all season long, Jerry.
They really have, Justin. And like you said, they played Utah, and they played Utah at a time when Utah was fully healthy. They had their full team, and Baylor was able to beat them. It was here. It was at the Farrell Center, but they did beat them. They beat Texas on the road. And I know, yes, it was right after Rory's injury. But you know what? That team without her went on to win the Big 12 tournament championship. They finished second in the league overall. So that's and like you said, they earned a number 1 seed. That's one of the teams on Baylor's resume, or that's a big win on Baylor's resume, beating a team that's now a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So like you said, I think they played lots of quality teams, even in non-conference games. I think of Miami. They beat them, and they're an NCAA tournament team. I think they played a really good schedule, and I think it prepared them both for the Big 12, and now I think they're prepared for the NCAA because of what they've been through.
The one advantage I think this women's team has is experience in the tournament. And you think about players, Jana Van Geitenbeek, she's played 13 NCAA tournament games, 11 of which came at Stanford. And Sarah Andrews, 8 games for her. 10 Baylor players have a combined 37 games of previous NCAA tournament experience. The only one really of the star players that's never played, Asia Blackwell. Rayshawn Dennis on the men's side. For both of them, I know this was why they came to Baylor, to play in the NCAA tournament. But for Baylor to lean on that experience on the women's side, Jerry, how much do you think that can benefit this team here?
A lot. I mean, that's a big key, Justin, because like you said, and I know when we were talking about the potential first-round matchup with either Vanderbilt or Columbia, those teams have not been there. They have not been in the NCAA tournament. Vanderbilt, I believe, made a run to the WNIT finals last year and lost at Kansas, but they haven't been to the NCAA tournament in a while. So you wonder kind of, what they're obviously either one of them will have a game under their belt, but they haven't been to the tournament in a while. And like you said, not only does Baylor have a lot of players with experience, they've had players that have experienced deep runs. Maybe they weren't the key players on those teams, but you think about Jana being on Stanford's national championship team. You think about Sarah being on an Elite 8 team her freshman year. Didn't play a lot of minutes, but she was on that team. So, yeah, I think the experience is a big thing. And, kudos to Asia Blackwell for being able to go to her first NCAA tournament. Man, that is a huge thing for her to be able to play in that in her 5th or 6th year. I think that'll be great. But yeah, that experience, it has to be a factor because not everybody has that. Not everybody has this kind of experience. And particularly maybe even more now with the transfer portal in and out and all that stuff. It's hard to have that kind of or that amount of NCAA tournament experience, but Baylor has it.
How about Rayshawn Dennis? Rayshawn Dennis, 5th year. Okay, got the COVID year. 2 years at Boise, 2 years at Toledo. He will play this week on Friday his 163rd career collegiate game, and it will be his first NCAA tournament game. Asia's not quite that high a number, or else I would say her too, but Ray J to play in that many games, that's just unbelievable. I don't know if I've ever seen someone that many games without playing in the tournament. But he certainly came here. He knew the moment he signed with Baylor, he was going to the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. And he really was in such a different position than he had ever been in because, in the leagues that he'd been in before, they really, you had to win the tournament pretty much. I don't know if that was the case at Boise State. He just wasn't on, really good teams at Boise State. But certainly at Toledo, he knew that if we don't win the tournament, we're not in. And so this was kind of a new experience for him. I mean, regardless of what happened at the Big 12 tournament, he knew that he was going to the NCAA tournament for the first time in his career. And what a cool thing. I didn't realize he had played that many games. That's amazing. And how cool is that to finally get into the NCAA tournament and play in the big dance in March?
Yes, both these teams, round of 32 exits the last 2 seasons. So really, I know our fans and I know these programs are working so hard to advance and just have a great March Madness, a memorable one. For these individuals, this will be the only time these coaching staff and this set of players will be together. So make the most out of your opportunity. There's 68 teams on both sides. There's not many schools that have both the women and the men in the NCAA tournament. and there's even less that make it past the first weekend. And the opportunity is in front of both these programs in great hands with terrific coaches in Scott Drew and Nikki Collin, coaching staffs, quality student athletes. For the women, they made it all the way up to number 4 this year. For the men, they made it all the way up to number 6. So, I mean, it's just one of those deals when these teams are playing at their best, Jerry, and shooting the basketball, both teams shooting and making shots. And I know both teams are working on a lot of shots getting up this week. But, yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. The ceiling really is the Final Four for both teams.
No, I agree, and I think you're absolutely right. These are not. I don't know that these would be teams you would look at and go, they live and die by the 3, but they can certainly live by the 3. Like that's, I think you and I have talked about it. If the men hit 10 3-pointers, they're probably going to win. If they don't, what was it, 5 of 24 the other day? If they shoot like that, it's hard for them to win. They're a good enough defensive team that they can keep in the game, but they really need to be shooting. They need to be hitting from outside the arc to win. And I think it's the same case for the women, Justin. They really need to make shots. It's that simple. It sounds very simple, but that is what the Baylor women need to do is they need to make shots. They really struggled with that in that fourth quarter. I believe it was 3 for 24 against Iowa State. Should have won that game, get to this to the semifinals, and have a chance to maybe even play for a championship. So, I think both teams the shooting has to improve. The starts definitely have to improve. The men have struggled with that over the last several games. The women have had issues with that as well. The women's issue might be a little bit more on finishing. If you get to the fourth quarter and you're up 6 points with 3.5 minutes to go, you've got to win. And they just didn't get it done in Kansas City against Iowa State. But yeah, if you get to that point, you got to finish. You've got some players, you've got some dogs that can finish the game for you. They just got to get it done.
Yeah, and these teams not too far away from each other. Blacksburg and Memphis, a little bit of a drive, but you could be on polar opposites of the country. And, we'll see how it shakes out. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll be with you throughout March Madness. All right, let's finish up talking Baylor Baseball. Wow, what a weekend for them. So top 25 Texas Tech comes in. Baylor looking for its first conference win of the season. They get 1, but 2 wins. 2 wins this weekend, really big time. I know we're happy for Mitch Thompson, great guy, and just to see this team kind of come alive and get these 2 wins, it's so big.
And essentially it was 2 wins in one day. I mean, they had the Saturday game suspended, and I think it was through I think they were into the 4th inning when the game was suspended by lightning, and then wound up moving it to the next day. Got the early start yesterday at noon, and wound up playing. I'd have to do my math real quick, but played, I think Mitch even said it, I think they played basically 15 innings yesterday, and he said it kind of reminded him of JUCO ball because, they play those double headers sometimes on the weekend. So, man, this was so good. The pitching all weekend, Justin, was amazing. I mean, starting with Mason Marriott on Friday night, 2-0 loss. But then to come back and win not only that middle game, win the suspended game when you were up 5-0, win it 5-1, and then win that series clincher 7-2. And coming back from, another delay, another lightning delay. I think it was an hour and a half or right at an hour and a half. So a long day at the ballpark, but it was worth it getting those 2 wins.
Yeah, Baylor, big week ahead for them. Sam Houston travel on the road. Hopefully you can get that win. And then you're heading to Austin for the final time at Big 12 Conference play. Would love to win the series there this weekend against the Texas Longhorns. So we'll see what Baylor can do. But a lot of fun right now, a lot going on. And March Madness certainly at the top of everything. Jerry, it's that time of the year, right? The brackets come out. People are filling out the brackets. And just to be having 2 teams in, I don't think we can ever lose.
Yeah.
We take it for granted because it happens every year. I mean, the women have went 20 straight times. The men have went to 12 straight postseason appearances. So we just expect it. I know the fans do that as well, but that doesn't make any reason why you can't enjoy it and just be grateful about it.
Yeah, you can't take it for granted, but it is the expectation. You expect to be there in March, and you expect to be, I hesitate to put it this way, but you want to be in the right tournament. You want to be in the NCAA tournament. There was a stretch there where, and certainly the men got a lot of advantage out of going to the NIT, but that's no longer the expectation. I mean, they did get a lot out of that. They went to the championship game twice. They won it in 2013, but this is the tournament you want to be in. And, this is the expectation for both programs. And I expect them not to just get there, but, they need to make Sweet 16 runs and make that a regular thing.
That'll do it for today's edition of Inside Baylor Sports, a Sport and Story production. Thanks for listening. For Jerry Hill, I'm Justin Hoff. Have a great Monday, and sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em Bears.